New England Ski Journal's BaseCamp Podcast, presented by Country Ski and Sport. Ski season is here, and it's time to gear up at Country Ski and Sport. Shop now for your best preseason deals at any of their 3 locations in Hanson, Quincy, and Westwood, Mass. Or shop online at countryski.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the BaseCamp Podcast after a small hiatus coming out of the winter. We're into the summer season. I'm Mike Spiecian, your host, with my current co-host, David Yass.
Fill in Dave, here again, producer Dave. Happy to be here. The snow may have melted, but the podcast marches on.
Well, the snow is melted in most places, but the Killington Glacier still lives. So anybody still wanting to get skiing, Killington's open. Get up there, make some turns. They are the last one now.
Oh, last one standing.
But
have you ever skied in shorts? I'm sure you have.
I've skied in shorts. I've skied at Killington on June 1. I've skied at Killington October 7th before. So both extents of the skiing world here, both fall and spring. But now we're into summer. I mean, I'm sort of stoked, David, that the sunshine, birds are singing, trees are popping. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, I feel like these last couple weeks, you get one day in the 70s and one day in the 30s, but we live in New England. That's what we signed up for. But you're right, the birds are singing. You know, in my apartment, I have a sort of mini bird watching area. It's this thing you buy, and it's like clear plastic, and it juts into your unit, and then birds come in, they hang out with me while I'm having my morning coffee. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had, I think, 8 different birds in my backyard at the same time. One was to the side, which was a huge pileated woodpecker. And it is, you know, sitting out there with a cup of coffee or beer and just listening to the backyard be alive is pretty cool. But this time of year, you know, all of us, maybe all of us aren't advanced skiers, all of us aren't beginner skiers, but all of us go out walking or hiking.
Mm-hmm. I've actually increased my hike. It's my new favorite way to exercise because I'm a lazy guy. I don't like going to the gym. But you climb a mountain, you know, you take it in scenery. And if you're like me, you get lost occasionally, have to find your way out of the woods. It's always fun.
Well, self-reliance and route finding is the best part of a hike, as long as it's safe,
right? Or
a mountain bike ride or anything. That's part of what makes it an adventure. Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure you know this answer. I'm sure most of our listening audience knows it, or I'm assuming something. What is the second most hiked mountain in the world?
Well, is the first Mount Fuji? No?
You nailed that.
Okay.
Mount Fuji's number 1.
Mike told me before the show started, actually. So tell us what the second one, because that's going to be the shocker I have.
Just so you know, I told him. He didn't know, but I had already told him. But Mount Monadnock. Mount Monadnock, stone's throw away. It's probably, I don't know, 45 minutes from my house. Mm-hmm. It's one of those, every time I've been up Mount Monadnock, especially the White Trail, it just makes me smile knowing that it's so close, southern New Hampshire. But it gets hiked a lot. I mean, it's a beautiful location.
I had no idea. So we're talking thousands, maybe millions of people every year. And I confess I've never been, but now I'm going to make a point to go. Is it easy to navigate? Is it, you know, you sort of pick your poison, whether you want a harder route, longer route, etc.?
You pick your poison.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, it's however you want to go. The trails are well marked. And, you know, anybody that's driven in through Dublin, New Hampshire, cutting across towards Keene and Brattleboro, as you stop, look across the lake on the western side of Dublin, it is the most beautiful, picturesque, scenic locations. It's one of those iconic locations where you're looking out at all of Mount Monadnock, and then you go hiking. And it's just an incredible experience.
Is there water involved?
No water.
No water. Okay.
Bring your own.
No, but I mean any rivers or fishing holes or things like that. I guess not on the mountain.
Nope, nothing,
Yeah,
nothing
okay.
up on the mountain.
Okay.
But it's Jaffrey, New Hampshire, up in that neck of the woods. There is fishing around there, but Mount Monadnock, the number 2 hiked mountain in the world.
You want to mention a couple other your favorites places to go hiking?
Places I like to hike. I think any of the highest peaks in each state, Mount Greylock. I have never skied Mount Greylock, even though the Thunderbolt Trail I've always wanted to. Anytime I've been out there, the snow hasn't been there for me to skin it. But Greylock in Massachusetts, wonderful spot. Just because it is the highest peak out in the Berkshires. Other spots, I absolutely love Lafayette. And probably my favorite in New England is Mount Katahdin, just because it's so rural. You've got the knife's edge. When you look at Katahdin, it's hard to believe you're still in New England because of the ruggedness of it.
I'm not as experienced as a hiker as you are, but it's you go on any website that caters to hikers. It's amazing how many options there are around. I mean, we sit here in Milton. Blue Hill is a nice mountain to hike.
It's wonderful. I've been up it numerous times.
Yep. You climb up, you go to the observation tower up there. That's always fun. If you have kids, they love it. Not too hard to hike. I mean, you can pick your route up there, of course. I grew up in Sharon. We've got, in Sharon alone, which is like a small town, we've got Borderland State Park. We've got Moose Hill State Park. In Foxborough, where I live now, there's a place called Gilbert State Park. I've been lost in there many times. But I've always found my way out. And you just get a little extra hiking in.
Well, you know what? The beauty of hiking, unlike maybe skiing or some other sports, the beauty of it is you can go for a hike anywhere. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're in Gloucester, you can go to Dogtown and take a hike. But the biggest issue with hiking, especially in the big mountains, I don't care if it's here in New England or the Rockies or the Wasatch of Utah, the biggest problem right now is making sure people are educated and safe.
And so, which leads us to the terrific conversation we're going to have today. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to do something, we're going to go to a guide service and talk about hiking, in the Mecca of New Hampshire or New England being the White Mountains. That is nothing against the hiking in the Greens, which I love, or the Bigelows over in Maine. But the White Mountains are the epicenter of New England hiking. And Mike Cherim opened up a guide service that wasn't there to create a hiking guide service so that people could experience something really unique. And we're going to talk to Mike and get the lowdown about what he sees up in the Whites and what they do as an organization to help make it safer and help bring more people into hiking. So we'll be right back with Mike Cherim from Redline Guiding.
Looking for expert ski, snowboard, and boot fitting advice? Stop into one of Country Ski and Sport's 3 locations in Quincy, Westwood, or Hanson, Mass. As a third-generation family business, Country Ski has provided Boston area skiers with the best service and discounts in the area for over 50 years. Whether you are brand new to the sport or a seasoned veteran, Country Ski has the equipment and accessories for all ability levels. Don't forget to ask about their popular season lease program, which helps families eliminate the growing pains of purchasing new equipment every year as kids grow. And don't forget, any child 18 years or younger receives a free season pass to Saddleback Mountain with each lease from Country Ski. Visit countryski.com for all the latest information or to shop online.
The Button Ski Hanger is a patented ski storage fixture that safely stores alpine skis regardless of length, width, or shape. This means that your fat powder skis can now be stored next to your narrower carving skis, your race skis, and your kid skis. For more information, visit their website, buttonskirack.com. The Button Ski Hanger is also available for purchase at amazon.com. So make your purchase today. The Button Ski Hanger is simply better for your skis.
At 4,237 feet, Sugarloaf is one of the largest ski areas in the East and second highest peak in the state of Maine, trailing only Mount Katahdin. Boasting over 1,300 acres of open terrain and a vertical drop of nearly 3,000 feet, Sugarloaf offers a wide variety of terrain for all ability levels. A historic winter is ahead with the debut of West Mountain. It's the largest terrain expansion in the Northeast since the late 1970s, adding 12 new beginner and intermediate trails, 88,000 feet of snowmaking pipe, and 246 HKD snowmaking guns. Sugarloaf is a destination not to be missed. Stay slopeside and plan your trip today at sugarloaf.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the BaseCamp Podcast. Joining us now from North Conway, New Hampshire, owner of Redline Guiding Services, Mike Cherim. Mike, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you know what? I think North Conway is kind of special to all of us skiers down here in the flatlands. But it's also really important to us in the summertime because of the Saco, because of the White Mountains, and so on. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to decide to start a guide service in North Conway.
Why did I start a guide service in North Conway? Change of life occurred, and I was in a position where I needed to sell the company that I was running and decided on a new career path. I had that opportunity, a do-over in life, if you will. And I decided I wanted to become a guide. I came up here and I talked to the owner of a well-known guiding agency and told him that I wanted to be a guide. And he asked me about my climbing background, which I had none at the time. I do now, but I had no climbing background. And he says, well, there's no hiking guides or anything like that. Undeterred, I decided I was going to go stay the course that I had determined and picked for myself. And it worked out. It worked out okay.
Reinventing yourself for the second chapter of life. I've done it a couple times. It's a great way to reinvigorate the soul. Yeah. First and foremost, just incredible way to do it. But he told you there were no other hiking guides up in.
It's really, from a marketing standpoint, people really look to, climbing guides, ice climbing, rock climbing, backcountry skiing and stuff like that. Some mountaineering. But there's this whole hiking world out there that was kind of overlooked. And that's what I wanted to be. I wasn't a climber.
Sure.
I've done some big climbs and done some ice climbing. I've led ice, I've led rock climbing. I've done some things, but at the time I didn't. My background and my passion was for hiking in the White Mountain National Forest.
Well, I look at hiking. Hiking is available to anyone, anywhere, anytime. And I'm just, it's amazing. The biggest marketplace is hiking. And I applaud you for seeing a need there where everybody else was like, everybody goes hikes by themselves.
And we can see how that turns out sometimes not well for some.
Well, we're gonna talk about that part of the equation here in a little bit. Well, you guys are based in the Northeast Mecca of hiking. I mean, the White Mountains, when we think about hiking in New England, even though the Green Mountains or the Bigelows and stuff over in Maine have hiking, North Conway, the White Mountains are the Mecca. We saw a major uptick in trail usage and exploring coming out of COVID as people tried to get out and enjoy nature.
Yep.
What did you see in the mountains from trail etiquette to hiker preparedness out there?
Well, it was a learning curve, and it continued to be a learning curve even after we came to our conclusions. I mean, at first they were trying to keep people out of the mountains. They were aggressively blocking parking lots, and so weird things were going on at the onset of COVID and how we respond to it as people. And there was a lot of similarities, a lot of weird things happened, a lot of unsettled feelings because people didn't understand the future and stuff. So, what's the question?
I guess I wanted to know if did trail etiquette change at all from before 2020 till COVID till now?
Well, it did. I actually wrote an article on trail etiquette, and it was later published in the Appalachia Journal. It was one of those, just like everything else, just like stockpiling toilet paper. It was one of those weird things that was kind of in a state of metamorphosis, in a state of flux when I addressed it and wrote that subject. So, I think that the graphic that I had to head that particular article was a simple cartoon of two people encountering each other on a trail and just kind of like, oh no, there's a person. And because at the time that was like, people were holding their breath as they're passing each other on the trail and stuff like that, not really understanding or not really knowing what was the right thing to do. And of course, there were some people that, were maybe for political reasons or personal beliefs that felt really strongly one way. And, there's other people that felt really strongly the other way. So it was an interesting time in humanity, I will say.
It was an interesting time for sure.
So it brought a lot of people out. It brought a lot of people to, like, I had a friend who used to go on walks. We would literally get on a headset. They were down in southern New Hampshire. They would walk in a park or an area that they actually had never been in. It was in their area, but they had always come up to the mountains to hike. And we would and I would walk around here in the mountains and we didn't have anything else to do at the time. It was kind of nice in that regard. So we just twalk is what we would call it. So,
I think we ought to start a new program nationwide of twalking. I think think about it. You're in the White Mountains and somebody's in Rocky Mountain National Park that you're a friend of, and you can go on a hike together and experience, you might see a bald eagle. They might see a golden eagle and say, wow, we're getting the same experience. I think we ought to start a trend there, and you're the one that started it. I love it.
Can I get royalties?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
This is a podcast. We're getting rich here.
Nobody says being a guide pays a lot.
Well, same thing with podcasting, just so you know. No, what about hiker preparedness? What did you see? Any changes there?
Well, there was more new hikers out there. So there was a lot of people that just didn't have the right gear just for sheer ignorance. But, also conversely, probably had more people with the right gear showing up times. There was just more people. So there was more of every category. And we still have the same situation now. It's really no different. I don't know that COVID really had any impact on hiker preparedness or anything. Some people were prepared adequately. Some people were ill prepared and some people were over prepared. And that was true then. That's true now. Just because of social media and just the ability for the world to communicate with itself, there's probably more people that are at least aware of the fact that they should be carrying certain things or have a certain attitude in the mountains. Not everyone's going to yield to that. And it's understandable. A lot of people get in trouble here because of our proximity to the city, to the major population centers. I mean, I forget the actual quote, but we are within one day's drive of either half of the nation or something like that. Millions of people are within a day's drive of us.
Yeah, I mean, proximity to the White Mountains for...
Yeah, and in proximity to the danger zones.
Sure.
Because unlike a national park where you have a main entrance and you're checking in with somebody and you're checking in there, people are observing you and you're being handled in a way. I hope you guys aren't seeing these notifications popping up on my screen.
We're not actually, but that's good.
Good. So, but the population, the proximity to, say, the summit of Mount Washington, the Alpine Zone, they show up at Pink and Notch. It's a nice place. They kind of tool around and check it out, look at the stores, maybe walk down the trail, maybe go to Crystal Cascades, 10-minute walk. And then they keep going on the trail. And next thing you know, they find themselves halfway up the Cojos at the Hermit Lake shelters. And it's like, wow, this Alpine Zone's right up there. We just keep going. And next thing you know, they're in Alpine Zone. They're in the, in this area that has unpredictable weather. It's pretty harsh climate. And they get to enjoy it, and then they go home. And 99.999% of the time, that's the story. People have no idea how close they are coming to danger and to dying and to hypothermia and to becoming a statistic in the news. And I would love to credit the saying. I don't know who said it. It was some guy had it in his signature back when forms were a thing, but it was that the mountains spare most fools. And absolutely true. Most people go into the mountains and come precariously close to real problems, real danger, and they aren't even aware of it and just go home at the end of the day, satisfied with the experience. Hopefully, they can learn from that, say that without a really cool experience, we really enjoyed that, we would like to do more, and then start doing some research. But because of where we are, because of our mountains, it's like Mount Washington's 4.2 miles up the trail, the summit of Mount Washington from where you start. People walking around normal America, 4.2 miles isn't a big deal. Couple in 4,200 feet of elevation gain and on rough terrain, and you're talking about, it's a completely different ballgame, but people don't realize that.
Yeah, it is it's not walking around Boston Common or Central Park. It's a different animal without the services when something does happen. It's funny you sort of presented it that way. There's a classic book regarding missteps in the White Mountains, classic, called Not Without Peril.
Right.
Any hiker in New England, I think, has read this book, and it chronicles so many of the misfortunes and tragedies that have happened in the Whites. How can we avoid more of these stories from happening?
Mm-hmm. With education, things like this can be helpful. People will be exposed to the concept of safety in the mountains, and some are going to dig further, and some are going to be like, I don't need that, and they're just bravado or whatever, macho, going to head up into the mountains without, and most of the time that's just fine for them. They just get away with it. You know what I mean? So certain things have to align for things to go bad. In the case of that book, Not Without Peril, excellent book, I've read it. Met the author. He was locally since passed away, unfortunately. I was teaching a navigation class, and we happened to be at a Dunkin' Donuts, and I was talking to my class, and I can speak with clarity and with volume. And he was telling me, will you shut up? This is an old guy. And we ended up becoming friends, but it was kind of that was the first time I met him. And he talked about in that book, and I bring up that book a lot when I teach wilderness navigation, is because people have the tendency to veer away from the wind in their face. And that's brought up in that book in one of the chapters about somebody going up there. The wind was right in their face. Had they kept fighting the wind and going into it, they would have actually reached the summit of Washington and salvation at the time. Instead, they veered away from the wind and ended up losing their life in the crumholes, in the stunted, low shrubbery up there, if you will.
Sure. That book, when I read it, and then I watched the tragedies that happen up on Lafayette or wherever, it just, things that happen that shouldn't happen if you use common sense or you were prepared for the situation to make the decision. We've talked about this with backcountry skiing with David Goodman recently as he ended our winter podcast. But about the go or no go situation. I've made some bad decisions, I know, in my life.
Absolutely.
But Redline is a guide service. What is your team's role in making hiking more accessible and safer?
So we can fill a number of roles. We can be the mentor and take someone from ground zero right up through the progression to become a qualified mountaineer. We have people that are very experienced that just want a companion. They want not just a companion, but somebody they're not going to have to end up babysitting and looking after. None of their regular hiking friends are available to perform this particular thing, which they feel compelled what they have to do. So they'll often hire us. So we run both ends. We're dealing with the complete novice and taking them through, steps 1, 2, 3, and you get into the hiking, to all the way to, bringing people up to an expert level, in mountaineering or climbing. I have some really talented climbers and some really talented people on my team with some varied experiences, from massive backpacking experiences to some really high level climbing on ice and rock and stuff like that.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that team? Tell us about some of your guides and, their backgrounds.
I'll come up with Arlette Lund is one. She's the only woman to have hiked all of the national scenic trails in the United States. For those not familiar with that includes the Continental Divide Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, the AT, and 8 more trails. Some of them quite long, like the North Country Trail. I believe that's like 5,400 miles long. Wow. Some of she's done multiple times. So she's done the AT, I think, more than once. She's done the Florida Trail, I know, more than once because she just went down there and did it again. This is what she does on her time off. She'll work for, 6 months and then she'll take a couple months off and just do things that she wants to do. So that's just one guide. I have other guides that, have done all kinds of cool things, hiked big mountains, done skiing and climbing out west. Myself included, I've done some of that. Some people are really good at bushwhacking and just navigating the mountains out here. So, one fellow, Chase, he just completed his grid. For those that don't know, we have 48 mountains that qualify as 4,000 footers in the state of New Hampshire. It's a prominence. And, to do the grid, the hike grid is to summit all 48 of those mountains every month of the year. Now, granted, this isn't done normally in 1 year, though some people will do it 1 calendar year. That's unusual. But he's done it. He just finished, so it's 576 mountains or something, 48 times 12. You do the math.
So you're saying summiting every single one of them in a single month 12 times?
Yes, but not necessarily in the same calendar year.
Right. Nope, I got that. Well, does that mean you get 12 of the 4,000 foot stickers that we see in every vehicle?
You can if you apply over and over again. Most people are over it after the first one, as far as patches and stuff go.
Oh my goodness, that's endurance, and that is incredible.
So something that I've done, it's not really incredible or as much endurance, just to hike all of the trails in the White Mountain Guide. This is not another thing that people do. At the time, I based it on the 29th edition, so it was 1,440 miles of trails. Of course, even the simple out and back, you've doubled that mileage. So I have no idea how much mileage was actually, or elevation was actually put into that pursuit. In the long trail, I've done that personally, which I found to be one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life.
It's beautiful all the way up through the greens.
It was beautiful and it was well executed, and we had good weather. Only one rainy day. It was pouring rain, but we had one rainy day. But we planned everything really well, with just mailing ahead and having facilities to mail things back, like dirty socks, clean socks, things like that. It was 21 days it took us to hike the thing. No 0 days. Jesus, there was just no adulting for 21 days. If you can wrap your head around that. at the time. I mean, I had a cell phone. This is only back in 2015. I had a cell phone. I basically had it turned off. On about 15 days into this thing, I posted a picture of a white blaze and a section of trail that was really not even photo worthy. And I just posted that to Facebook, and I said, I'm hiking with my friend Bill. We're on this really long trail. But I didn't tag long trail or make it. To those who knew, which is hardly anybody, they understood. And to everybody else, they're just like, whatever. I got maybe 5 likes or something like that. Then I got back and said, we hiked the long trail and we did them, that's how I generally operate. I don't usually post like, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's usually after the fact. And if I feel like sharing it, then I will. So just the privacy.
Well, that's old school way of doing things. I don't need to
old school.
Yeah, I don't need to show everybody everything I do at every moment. So there's another organization up in the North Conway area called Solo. I would like to know if you have a relationship with them. And, I know they do a lot with wilderness first responding.
Yep.
What type of education do you guys have out there?
So they created the Wilderness First Aid Program, which is then morphed into Wilderness First Responder and Wilderness EMT. But that's what they started back in the 70s or something. Dr. Hubble started, I think it's Hubble, something like that, that started the Solo and started the WFA, Wilderness First Aid Program. We teach that with solo instructors. So we host it. We do 4 classes a year. And they're advertised on their site. There are hundreds of classes at any given time, all over the Northeast and stuff like that. There's different instructors traveling and stuff like that. So these classes can be found through us, and not just through us, but through Solo and through, their network of other hosts, other providers like us. So we do that with Solo instructors. I wouldn't want to try to kind of take over what they're doing there. They are long established, and I think they do a really good job with their classes. So
what type of education I know, looking at the website, looking at what you guys do, what type of education do you do beyond the first responder?
One of our most popular programs is our wilderness navigation program, which is essentially map, compass, and brain. It uses a lot of common sense, which, by the way, you had said something about common sense a ways back. My father told me that most people don't have common sense. When he told me that, I actually didn't realize. I just assumed everyone had some level of common sense. He says, no, common sense is uncommon. So that answers that question from back
Yep.
there.
Oh, yeah.
So we also seasonally, we teach campcraft, which is backpacking. We teach a river crossing skills course, which is actually in pretty high demand because nobody else does it. We get people from all over the Eastern Seaboard. Most of them are doing the same thing. They're going to do the PCT or they're on the JMT, and they know there's going to be some severe crossings that they want to be prepared. And we teach them about, simple things like the time of day when you're going to take on these crossings and positioning yourself so you can take advantage of the crossing at a particular time of day and just all that's involved with that. And then we have a lot of other courses. We have a digital navigation course, which teach people how to use Gaia and some of the apps and stuff like that. I don't think I could incorporate that into the wilderness navigation course because it's a whole day unto itself.
Sure.
In the wintertime, we teach ice climbing. When summertime, we teach rock climbing. We take people out on rock climbing adventures and, winter ice climbing adventures. In the wintertime, we teach mountaineering skills and winter skills, which those combination, specifically with a winter Mount Washington attempt the next day. That's a really popular offering. So they're learning how to pant, they're learning how to prepare, how to, as much as they can the day before this thing. If they need to lose weight or something, and, obviously nutritionally, that starts months in advance in preparing for some of these bigger things, but they're learning how to do all this stuff, how to prepare, what the resources that we use to check the weather, because ultimately people can come away from us and be more independent. They're not like addicted to guides at this point. Some people use us over and over again because of what we offer, but not everyone. So.
Yeah, I mean, education and usage of a compass and map. You stated that that was one of your most used education type situations. We
Yes, popular
can't-
report.
yeah, we can't always depend on a cell phone. And yeah, maybe cell phone's great to carry. It's great to be able to ping your location when you're in a situation where you need help.
Mhm.
But self-reliance requires a compass and a map.
Yeah. Or just a good understanding of where north is and what that means. Our course is like, it's gone to a different level. In our course, I have people draw a line on the map and give me the bearing, which we call it bearing. Azimuth would be more proper, but they can guess, which just surprises them. It's like, oh my gosh, if I can do this just by guessing without even using instruments, just like looking at a map and stuff. So it's funny how it's so. All the things we teach are mountaineering skills, in that like self-arrest and crampon use, and we teach some
Sure.
stuff which, we teach backcountry skiing, which obviously is big around here. We teach some other things that aren't even used around here. Like we have a glacier skills course. We teach people how to rope up and travel as a team on a glacier, which we have not. We teach them how to do self-extrication, 2-man, 1-man extrication from crevasses or crevasse rescue. We don't have any crevasses, but we make do. We have areas where we can fake these things, like we can fake a crevasse. If you have a steep enough hill and slippery and you're not going to be able to stand on it, that could be serve as a crevasse. And we're putting someone in a sled and throwing them off the edge. So we're trying to make it real.
Right.
And this is all, we do a lot of this in the spring. We'll sometimes use like Black Mountain Ski Area. They will let us use their mountain to conduct some of these classes late season because people are going out west in June and July. They're going to do Rainier. They want to have an idea even before they get there and take an RMI course. They want to know how to self-arrest and how to use crampons. So they are coming across as a complete noob on that end. And that training that they get over there when like they're doing Rainier or something, they'll probably get a day of training. That's going to be replicating what we did, which is great because it's offering a little bit. Let's touch on these things again. So it becomes a refresher for those in the know. So we get quite a bit of that. You'd think people just, they go out there, they know they're going to get trained. They're going to do some training, but they're preparing for the preparedness, which is really admirable in a way. Because these are the types of people that you are trying to be carrying out on a search and rescue.
Well, as we would always say in the fire service, where I came out of at one point, they are perishable skills. You've got to practice. And without practice, something's going to go wrong. With that, you mentioned rescues and stuff of that nature. There are a lot of volunteer rescue services up in the Whites, of course. We depend on them along with the National Guard for those when we get in trouble. Does your staff get involved with the rescue part of?
Some do, yes. So we at our base camp, which that's what we call our location, we have hosted supplies there for search and rescue. This was especially true during COVID. But a lot of team, myself included, were volunteers on search and rescue. So I'm on AVSAR, which is the Androscoggin Valley Search and Rescue. I'm on the Shakedown Committee. I was on the board at one time, but the Shakedown Committee is like the gatekeepers, people coming into the organization. One of my guides, Will Murphy, is the president of that organization. He's just actually voted in for a second term. They like him so much. He's a nice guy. He's very quiet spoken, but he's very intelligent. So he's kind of a perfect person for the role. Pat Furlan, one of my other guides, he's on AVSAR as well. Brian's on AVSAR. Let's see, Mike Maciel's on Lakes Region or PIMI, or maybe I'm both. I don't know. So there's a lot of us that are volunteering for search and rescue through the various organizations, mostly Lakes Region, Pemigewasset Valley Search and Rescue, the Mountain Rescue Service, MRS, which is IME, and then AVSAR, which I belong to. So AVSAR kind of serves the presidentials, the northern presidentials in that area. Pemi tends to be all over the place, and Lakes Region is down where they, as the name implies, down the Lakes Region, but they also come up here to help with stuff in far north. I've seen is the Dry River, and they've probably been even further north. So I believe like searching this past year on Franconia Ridge. I believe search Lakes team was involved with that along with everyone. It was a rather large organization.
Well, I want to thank you and your staff that are involved, because without you, we wouldn't have rescues or search and rescues up in that neck of the woods, because the National Guard and the state police can't do it by themselves. So I want to thank all of you. When I was reading your bio, I started to laugh because it read that you were a JP as well. How did that happen? And you're marrying your clients in the backcountry?
Well, I'm not marrying them.
There you go.
So, yeah, I mean, I happened. I felt that it would in part of a service that we offer in the mountains, and it done some kind of cool weddings. I've done a Bond Cliff wedding, made a 20-minute video out of it, and had a few nice weddings. I've done a few people on Mount Washington, a few on Willard, common places, and some of them aren't. Some over by a lake in middle New Hampshire, in the Lakes region, want me to on Squam Lake or something, doing a wedding there. It's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll play the role of a regular JP. I don't have to be the mountain guy, but that is how I differentiate myself from most JPs aren't into doing stuff like that. So, I think it's smart for the couple because it's really inexpensive. And this is purely subjective, but I find the venue in the mountains is so much better than any waterside or viewing place or, quaint farm and barn set up. And, all these are great. I don't want to be critical of where people get married, and all people have their own kind of priorities. I've married people in some pretty ridiculous places that only payment they had to make was to me to officiate and maybe a photographer, and to get them up there, get themselves up there. So think of it as sweat equity. Like I did last year, I did a wedding, sunrise wedding on Monroe, and we didn't have really a sunrise. It happened to be cloudy that day, but it's like 3:00 in the morning. We're on trail, and it's like super exciting. And then they get up there, and they're just like beaming and bubbling with joy to be up there in such a nice place, let alone the idea that they're getting married. And then they're changing and putting on wedding clothes there, which is a complete juxtaposition when you think of, the Alpine zone.
Sure.
Lady in white dress, So, but it's cool. I mean, that's just a little sweat equity. It's a little bit of time, a little bit of money, but nothing like, some of these traditional venues. People are paying tens of thousands of dollars for that. So,
well, my son got married by a JP. He eloped to the Redwoods.
Okay.
Same type of thing. I think, we're not going to go into the marriage story here, but I think the soulfulness of being on top of Monroe, and the soulfulness of understanding that when everything is said and done, being on top of that mountain is what really matters and brings you back to center.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. In parting, why do you tell us what's your favorite hike in the Whites? You've been everywhere. You've been on every trail. What's your favorite?
Oh boy. You're really putting me on the spot with this one.
I do it to everybody.
I like sections of the AT. There's one particular section of the AT that I like. So I would say if people want to enjoy that section, that they just start over in Hanover, New Hampshire, and they hike the entire AT through New Hampshire until they get to the Mahoosucs. And in doing so, they will have hiked that section that I find so rewarding and so awesome. That said, the Mahoosuc range, I really love it up there. It's super wild. The presidentials, because of all that alpine area, it has a real kind of a cool vibe to it. And I like a lot of the smaller mountains too, from Crescent Mountain over in Randolph to like Smarts Mountain and Cube Mountain way down in, the southwestern part of our area, if you will. So,
yeah, I mean, sorry to put you on the spot. There are so many beautiful spots, and I would say you start down in Georgia, you hop on the AT, you head north, and you catch the whole thing.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. There you go.
And make sure you don't miss Katahdin, because the Knife's Edge is absolutely something totally different than anything else in New England.
Yeah. So I would say if people want to come up there, if they really want to see it, is head off into the Pemi or something like that and really get into some of these wilderness areas that we have. Just be mindful. They need to be mindful of the restrictions that are on these wilderness areas, such as, motorized vehicles. No. Motorized anything. No. And keep your group size to 10 or fewer people, including any guides and stuff like that. These are federally designated wilderness areas. We have 6 of them in the White Mountain National Forest, 5 of which are in New Hampshire, and 1 of them is actually in Maine. The White Mountain National Forest extends into Maine a little bit. So
in parting, how can people find Redline?
Redlineguiding.com online. That's a great place to start. How we work is basically people find something that they want to do. They fill out our booking form, which isn't a payment gateway. It tells us, though, what they're interested in doing, what gear they might need. Also signs the waiver and does a bunch of other things. But it basically tells us what they want, when they want to do it. And then we communicate with them independently. Most of our stuff is private, and it's all private by default. So if you say, hey, I want to hike on such and such day, it's going to be you hiking on such and such day with a guide. There won't be anybody else in the group. If you make it joinable, there's a chance that someone else could be in the group, but we're probably not going to allow that unless we feel that the plans are going to align. It's going to be a great experience for both of these people. Because pace can kill a hike. If you get a person really fast, they feel slowed up. If you get a person that's really slow, they feel like they're being pressed all day long, and neither person is happy. So doing it private makes us unique, because nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to do groups. They pay more. I get it. But as far as experience for our customers, for our guests, I feel just one-on-one, but private. They're a couple with one of my guides or something. If they come into us as a group, if there's a mismatch, that's on them. So.
I like that train of thought. I think you're offering something that is completely needed in the White Mountains or in the hiking world. I want to thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you so much for joining us today on the BaseCamp.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is the year to visit the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. With over 450 inches of annual snowfall, 4,000 vertical feet of continuous fall line skiing, a world-renowned ski school, and terrain for everyone, the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort is perfect for your next ski trip with friends or family. Off the slopes, Jackson Hole offers adventure and relaxation. Visit Yellowstone or Grand Teton National Parks. See elk, moose, and bison roaming in their natural habitats, or relax in a hot spring or at a spa. No more excuses. This is the year to go visit Jackson Hole. Go to jacksonhole.com for more information.
Hestra knows hands. For over 80 years, Hestra has been producing the highest quality, warmest gloves you can own. Crafted with durable, form-fitting leathers, they are made with the end user in mind. Don't let cold hands end a great day of skiing or snowboarding early. With hundreds of different options, you'll find a Hestra glove that fits your needs. Check out Hestra Gloves at hestragloves.com That's HESTRAGLOVES.com. Or at your local ski shop or wherever Hestra gloves are sold. Hestra Gloves, taking care of your hands since 1936.
Hey, David, that was a really robust conversation about hiking and what is offered up in the White Mountains. What did you get out of that?
Just that it makes me want to go up there. I mean, Mike clearly lives and breathes it. You know, he talked about his personal experience and how that really led him into a passion for hiking. And then a lot about safety. And I think it's, you know, it's not fun to talk about safety, but it's important. I mean, a month doesn't go by when sadly you hear of something, some tragedy, or hopefully not a full-blown tragedy, but problems that hikers have. And so do it and do it safely. And man, he looked like he just came from a hike and he was on the way to a hike.
He was walking the walk. He wasn't just talking the talk.
Sure.
But when I asked him two questions, one about etiquette and one about preparedness, the etiquette part, we saw a lot of garbage in the mountains, in parking lots, at trailheads, on the trail. We have to be, as outdoors people, as skiers, as hikers, as mountain bikers, we have to actually be stewards of the land we use. We can't just do what we want to do. Part of that is staying on the trail, because every time you decide to make a side trail, there's erosion and stuff that happens with it. It's even worse out west. So anybody that's hiked a lot out west, the plants and stuff just don't come back quick because it's so arid. But that was number one, the etiquette. The preparedness, I brought up not without peril, because we are still seeing people die up there that don't have to die. And, thank goodness for the rescue teams, but they want to rescue. They don't want to recover.
Right.
And when you look at the amount of preventable deaths that have happened on the Lafayette's of the world because somebody didn't say, look, it's not my day. And David Goodman, when I asked him that question in the Backcountry episode, he was really adamant. It's not my day. I can make it halfway up. And if it's not right, it's not right. I'll turn back, but I'd rather have another day to try it again.
Right. And sometimes there's a fine line between adventure and foolishness, right? And there's no shame, as you undoubtedly would agree. It's one thing to sort of push yourself physically, but to push yourself beyond reason of what's safe and what isn't, it's like, what are you doing? You enjoy this. You want to do this again tomorrow or the next week or something, right? So for sure, to know your limitations. And then what you said before really rings true to me is one of the great things about hiking is it's one of the few times where you really feel, these days, how many times do we feel unplugged, And granted, we've all probably still got our phones on us, but still, you're out there in this just picturesque area, and to not have at least a small amount of pride in how nice it looks and to keep it that way, that I don't get that. So, but yeah, you think of the next guy. And I mean, I don't know about you, but there is a certain camaraderie among when you pass people on the trails. Everyone wants to say hi to you,
There is, because you're all out there for a reason.
Yeah.
You're all out there for the same reason, to actually embrace nature. Well, in parting, folks, this is a term I always say. I've told my son this. I live by this. And it really is imperative to be said today. It is really not about the goal. It's about the journey. So the goals can change. The peak, I went up Tuckerman's Ravine one day when I should have never. And when I told Mike that I've made some stupid moves, that was a stupid move at 22 years or 23 years old. For all rights, I probably shouldn't have survived. But guess what? I've learned from that. It's about the journey.
What happened? How did that day end? I mean, it ended with you okay, I presume. But
I took a slide by myself. I was the only one in Tuckerman's Ravine, and I was about halfway up the head wall when I took a slide backwards down the head wall. It was about 32 degrees, sleet. I should have never, ever, ever been there. Somebody was at the base and came over to me and saw me and was surprised I survived the slide.
Wow.
At 23.
Wow.
But that was stupid. That was young, stupid, learn from it. I could have been part of Not Without Peril in that book. But the bottom line is, the goal's the goal. The journey's what matters. And if the journey stops 3/4 of the way up or halfway up because it's not right, it's not right.
So be it, for sure.
So, but we're looking forward to this summer program. Listening next time, which will be a couple weeks away because we're bi-weekly now. We will have on Mark Hayes and the premier mountain bike park here in New England, the Highlands. So make sure you check in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening today. A reminder, we're on YouTube. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your pods. We're a production of the New England Ski Journal and Seamans Media. He's Mike Specian. I'm David Yaz. We'll see you next time.
New England Ski Journal's BaseCamp is a Seamans Media podcast. Seamans Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.